So that was an excellent podcast. John Johnstone from Football Mindset. That's, what are we going to call it, part 2?
7.2.
7.2. Yeah. Just a bonus.
Yeah, so this would be the bonus episode of this podcast, as we had John in originally a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And the audio just wasn't perfect. And if you know anything about us, you know that we're sticklers for quality. Yeah. So we've upped our game here in terms of quality. And we thought it was worthwhile getting John back in because his content, I think, is really important and useful to everyone.
Yeah, we don't want people being put off by the crackles in the audio from the first version. But this podcast turned out to be a really good one because we managed to touch on subjects that we never had the opportunity to the first time round with John, because it was very much like an introduction to who John was. And I think if anything, it's shown me that it's probably a good idea to have people in a second time. And once we've gotten to know them, like it's good having them in the first time, get to know you, figure out what they do and what they're all about. But having them a second time in, John's really shown us that there's a lot more underneath the surface that you can get to if you have the time to just discuss various of different subjects.
If this is the first time that you're hearing of our podcast and or John Johnstone runs a company called Football Mindset, and it's really resilience training for professional footballers. So he takes players at really critical times, whether it's they've moved to a new club or they're trying to get to that next level, and he helps just deal with the internal struggles that you will have and the uncertainties that you have as a player. But again, that can translate to anything that anybody's doing, because at the end of the day, it's helping people with their mindset, right? So
yeah, you can go across any subject area for sure. It was an excellent podcast, and we hope to have John on again in the future, and hope that everybody enjoys part 2 of Football Mindset. All right. Thank you for coming in, John. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
So, I know we've been through this already. There we go, it's already been addressed. But could you tell people just a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Basically, I work with professional footballers. So I've got a business called Football Mindset. And to describe what I do with these guys is, do you know how at times in life you know what you need to do and you know how you need to feel about something in order to do that?
Yeah.
I help footballers understand why they're not feeling the way that they want to feel or what they need to do in order to feel that way.
Okay.
So to relate it to performance, it could be a footballer knows that he needs to go into a park and feel confident. A footballer knows that he needs to remove self-doubt. He needs to go in there believing in himself. But sometimes before a game they sit there and all they've got going through their head is negativity.
Yeah.
What if I give the ball away? What if I make a mistake? What if I put in a poor performance? So basically I help a footballer understand why that negativity is there and what they need to do in order to change that fact.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that for?
It's been a bit of a journey to this point, but working with professional footballers, it has been since the start of, I was going to say last season, but we're now into a new season, so it'll be 2 years ago.
2 years.
But previous to that, I was working with kids, I was working with pub teams, youth teams, anybody that would let me speak. I was working with them.
So I'm curious, how is it that you get a professional footballer that wants to speak to someone that does mindset coaching?
I always knew where I wanted to go. So I always knew that professional footballers, that's who I wanted to work with. And at that point, just getting into the business or just kind of starting out, I knew that on day one, I wasn't going to have footballers at my door saying, I want to work with you. So basically what I'd done is I just went to, if I knew professional footballers wouldn't work with me at that point, I just thought, right, who would? That's what I was saying. I was working with kids. I was working with pub teams, youth teams, junior teams, anybody that would allow me to talk about my beliefs around mindset, around self-development, around football mindset. I went and spoke to them. But what I was also doing at that point was using social media. So I was putting myself out there, building a social media presence, whilst approaching players. So whether it was writing letters, whether it was writing emails, whether it was knocking on doors, just putting myself out there. It wasn't so much players were coming to me, it very much is to this point. I'm still going out there to players, but hopefully over time, and that's what I've started noticing the last few months, more players are coming to me, but I was always very much on the front foot.
Going and chasing them,
using social media. You'd probably be looking at 400, 500, 600 attempts or kind of reaching out to people before the first one actually said yes.
And who were you reaching out to? Were you going directly to them?
Directly to the player.
Directly
to the player, because initially I thought, right, I've got this system, I've got this process, so working with self-development, working with mindset, I believed I had a system that would work, and I thought, right, I'm going in to work with a manager.
Yeah.
So let's put it through a club. But trying to reach out to managers and that, it was tough, it was difficult, and what became evident quite quickly was a manager would have to overhaul his whole system
to bring you in.
Because the self-development work, the mindset work, is probably football's final frontier. Although there is certain clubs looking at it, they're probably not looking at it in any great depth, and there's loads of clubs not looking at it. So I knew that to take a manager, say a manager's 40, 50-year-old, he's got his beliefs, he's got his systems in place, and very few actually have any kind of self-development or mindset aspects to that. So as a manager that's been a manager for 20 years, going to listen to me and then change his whole demeanour, his whole system, his whole way of working.
To let you in.
To let me in, quite evidently, early on, the answer to that was no. So I looked at the work, I looked at what I had in place, and I thought, right, if I can't get in through a manager, let's go directly to a player.
Yeah. I mean, that must be really only possible because of social media. Like, if you'd had to do this, if you'd had to have started this profession 15, 20 years ago, you'd have had to have, shown up in the park.
Training ground.
Yeah.
And just, like, shouted at them.
No,
Please.
100%. Social media has made it so much simpler. Has it made it easier? You could probably argue yes, but it certainly made it simpler.
So when I say easier, I don't mean like it wouldn't have been difficult in the first place. None of these things would be easy, but it would have been it would have been physically very difficult from a travel and just speaking to these people perspective. If it wasn't for like having a direct line to them,
like you wouldn't have their mobile number, you would need to find a way to speak to them directly, which must be a struggle. And obviously, speaking to them now directly, it's not guaranteed. As you were saying, 600 attempts to get one player,
one guy to go. Yeah,
I'm curious. Did you start at the top flight in Scotland, or did you have anybody in your network that you knew that was a footballer or at a club or anything like that?
So I had played football till I was 24, and then I started at that point. I had my own personal training business. So I stopped playing at 24, but when I started looking at self-development work and mindset work, which had kind of progressed or developed from the personal training, when I started that and when I looked to get into the football, I never had any contacts in the senior game. I knew the odd junior manager, a couple of my mates played junior, but I never had any contacts, whether it's your Hibs, whether it's your Hearts, Rangers, Celtic, any of these clubs, I never had any contacts. But again, what I never hid back from or pulled away from was just putting myself out there again and again. So it's funny because I'm a Hibs supporter, and I was going up to Inverness one night on the bus to watch Hibs. I think it was in a quarter-final replay the year they won the Scottish Cup, and I had this piece of paper in my pocket.
Yeah.
I've still got it. It's the system that I'd built for a manager to implement into their club. So I was on the supporters bus and I was talking to a couple of people like, this is what I'm going to do, telling them. And they're like, you should try this, or you should speak to him on the bus, he knows someone. So I try to get in through that, or just speaking to them. And being a Hibby, building the systems, telling like the Hib supporters what I was going to do. The first client I took on was John Suter. Hearts player, sorry.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I've still got the 8 pieces of paper. I've still got, like I said, I remember a social media post I put out that night. It was all to do with Hibs and their journey in the Scottish Cup, and kind of like working out your imagination as opposed to working out your past and whatnot. And it's just weird how these things work out.
Have you ever worked with anyone from your team?
No, I've been in. I worked with. Was it 2 sessions? Maybe 4 sessions actually. I had been brought in by Hibs. I'd basically knocking on doors again. I'd got in, and they had a development team, so guys that were just off the first team, so maybe 19, 20, and part of their apprenticeship they had done 4 sessions with myself.
Okay.
So that's where I'd got to with Hibs, but from that it went quiet on their side. So my view, or with anything, I always look and go, right, I'm going to make sure they need me before I need them. Yeah. That's just my take on it.
It must be quite I imagine with anything like this, it must be quite a hard thing to break into. And obviously what you do is still a business, right? Like you're going to want to make a stable and comfortable living for yourself off of the work that you do. But given the nature of your game, where you have to really prove yourself with players, it must have been quite a hard thing to kind of put that all to the back of your mind, the financial side of things, and be like, this is an opportunity that I need to take. I need to work with this guy. I need to take this opportunity to be on the field with this player, to get them and prove myself. But that must have been quite difficult, because I guess in our business there was odd jobs, right? Like we could do odd jobs to make a little bit of money. But for you, I don't imagine there was many odd jobs.
No, certainly odd jobs like that, no. When I left school, I became a plumber. So through the plumbing, I eventually I'd set up a personal training business alongside that later on. So I had the plumbing going on basically between plumbing and personal training. I was doing that kind of 24/7. So I'd managed to basically save myself a pot of money. And that allowed me, when I walked away from the plumbing, which was probably 5 years ago now, I'd think, to go full time in the personal training. That money, having that in the background, and to be fair, the only reason that pot was there was because I had worked for 24/7. Getting up at 5, 5:30, studying, training personal training clients, going to do plumbing at 8, coming home at 4, training more clients, and that it was just kind of 24/7, and I loved it. And I think it's interesting what you were saying there with regards to odd jobs, and that what I do, I'd imagine like so what you guys do, you could like so when you built my website, it was like a done for you system. I paid, told you what I needed, and then you done the work. And by the end of it, I had a product that I absolutely love. Whereas a footballer can't come to me and go, right, I need you to do this for me. It doesn't work.
No.
Money is one of the only ways of accountability, or one of the most powerful ways of accountability. I've tried a couple of 1 or 2 players previously, work with them for free, but very rarely does it ever work out. So I think that money, I think initially, like certainly raising my profile, getting my message out there, working with youth clubs and pub teams and all that, even if it was for social media content, for experiencing that, it was great. But especially now when you're working with these guys they're athletes that are on social media, they're athletes that are in the press 24/7 sometimes, free wouldn't work.
Well, no, because there's a value to what you do. There's a value to anybody. I mean, it's something that we have a conversation with everybody that comes on this show about, which is doing something for nothing. Because it's easy to say to somebody, you should do this for free because you need to prove yourself, you need to get experience under your belt. But at the same time, if you're delivering a quality anything, then somebody should pay you at least a minimum. I don't believe in free. I just don't. It's something that I think is there's no accountability for the work, and there's no accountability for the person who's taking it from you. There's no like agreement.
What I would say, there's more than one way of being paid. Money, like exchanging money, that's one way of getting paid. Whether it's social media posting, speaking to other people, and I think that. Could I have got to where I've got to? Know that I'm that far down the line, but especially when I look at my early work, breaking into football, could I have done that without working with clubs and that for free? I don't believe that I would be at this point now if I hadn't done that work for free, because I can tell you a funny story. I'm on a course just now. I use my own coaches with regards to business and whatnot, and there's people in that group, and it's like, work with me, and what's your price? They've got no clients, but they're like $3,000 for 3 months or $3,000 a month, whatever it is. So there's people in this group charging sky high with no clients. Whereas I don't charge as much, but I have more clients. And I think if you're sitting there as a coach, or if you're a business, if you're a website design, you can have your price. But if nobody's willing to pay that price at this point, there needs to then become a compromise. Now, whether that compromise for someone is free, obviously I had the plumbing going on at a point, I had the personal training going on at a point, which allowed to subsidise that. But if you've kind of taken the step for a full-time job and you've got, like, you've set up your own business to do something for free in that position, it probably changes it completely.
It's just very useful. You know, like if you have a price, like what you're saying there, some people have like a price that's not validated by people wanting to spend the money on their service. But I think even at let's say you're starting a business right now, even just setting a price doesn't need to be sky high. Just a minimum price means that you're qualifying whether someone's interest is genuine or not. You know, if they want to work with you, they're willing to. Let's say you offered your service to me for £2. It's still £2. I still need to pay that. So there still needs to be a value there. I think there needs to be an equal exchange in some regards. And as you're saying, like, it doesn't necessarily need to be a monetary value, but like Matt's saying, I think that there's just the whole idea of the transaction. I don't think doing it for free is ever the right thing for anyone to do. But unless you know exactly what you're getting from it. Yeah, I mean, by free, I mean there's no exchange. You're not getting any value from it, you know?
To be fair, I'd say initially I've driven to places like Shrewsbury to talk to people 5-6 hours for free. Now, I wasn't doing that every week, but I booked myself a hotel, paid for all that, and absolutely nothing came back my way except the experience. Of being in that environment, and that, for where I was at that time, that helped me. That was priceless. And it's funny because the meeting I was in, the first 5 minutes, would you stop swearing? Now, when I'm passionate about something, like he's sitting here and I'm like, right, try not to swear in my head. I'd went down to Shrewsbury, booked a hotel, stayed the night, turned up at the football club next day game morning. I was got taken into the manager's office, and when I start talking about football and self-development work and that, I become passionate. And when I become passionate, I swear. And I don't apologise for it, but so I was going 5 minutes in, and it was then like, would you please stop swearing? And I was like, right. So I've just driven from, don't know if you've ever been to Shrewsbury, you have to drive from Scotland into England into Wales back into England. So I think it was 6-7 hours in the car, booked my own hotel and that, 5 minutes in it, would you please stop swearing? I'm like, I'll just close the door on the way out. But no, certainly things like that for experience and whatnot. I think the benefit for me now as well is I always conducted myself with values. I always conducted myself with standards, whether someone was paying or not. And the amount of work that I'd done free and the way I'd conducted myself, I look back and I'm like, right, if I did that for free then, now anything's a kind of the way I conduct myself, and that I'd built it massively from that period. But I think it's all relevant to where that individual is.
Again, I think it's you got value from that experience. You know, it helped you for the next one. You were sharper. You know, your skills were sharper. Paid an
experience.
I mean, it also teaches you a valuable lesson of fuck some people, right?
But it was one of me. Please stop swearing, and then 3-4 minutes later, he's swearing, and I'm sitting on this big leather couch. I'm like, you need to practice what you preach.
Where's the consistency?
But that certainly never went that far.
I wouldn't have been able to deal with it. I'd have just left. I'd have been like, nope, fuck off.
It was funny because going back to he was speaking about, you were on about trying to make a breakthrough, and he had, I don't know if the club had advertised a position, but there was a guy that was hell-bent on working with the club, and he says one day the guy just turned up at the training ground, knocked on the door. If you'll no reply to my letters or you'll no reply to my phone calls, here I am. And the boy ended up getting a job. So he basically just physically turned up. He's like, you can't ignore me or you can't just push me to the side. Now that I've turned up, you're going to have to do something with me. And the guy's like that. He sort of admired the boys. I don't know if you want to say the tenacity or the kind of the brass neck, he just turning up, and that ended up getting the boy the job.
They say that about Tony Watt, that he just turned up at Celtic and was like, I'm pretty good at football, by the way. Turned out he was pretty good at football.
He's
scoring goals against Barcelona in the Champions League, you know, just a guy off the street,
top
basically.
Player. And if you look at the experiences and whatnot he's had in his career, playing in different countries, scoring a goal against Barcelona and whatnot, he's probably got more experiences than some of us will have in a lifetime, or more stories.
It's quite a leap though, for like in terms of where you were when you were a practicing plumber. Like it's quite a change, quite a huge change in terms of what your life must be like now, like what it is on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And how, I mean, I think that obviously for you, it's not a fantasy. You know, it's like it's not something that you just imagine in your head as being the case. You're driving up and down the country. You're going to football stadiums and grounds, training grounds of players that you've admired or you watch on TV, and then you're helping them get through whatever is going on in their head. But I mean, I think that for me, even listening to you and listening to your story, it's quite a leap. You know, like I can imagine you sitting in a van as a plumber, thinking to yourself, I want to do something different. And then like that's something different from you, maybe be like, I don't know, go and be an engineer, like something in line with what it is that you'd already done in your life. But you've not 360'd, you've jumped off the fucking planet and then gone somewhere else entirely.
No, I think I remember just sitting there and I'm like, right, I wasn't unhappy with the job, but I probably wasn't happy.
Yeah.
I never hated it, but it wasn't something that I could see myself doing long term. So I remember sitting in the van one day, I had the feet up on the dashboard, kind of typical council actions, and I'm just like, I could still be sitting in this van at 65, maybe not the same van, but I could be sitting in the van at 65. So at that point I'm like, right, I went away, trained as a personal trainer, or became qualified as a personal trainer, went down to Manchester for that. I just saved up all my half days, saved up money, saved up my half days, and then it'd just be like, right, half day on a Friday. Sometimes you'd get dropped off early. 11 o'clock you'd get the bus from Edinburgh at 12. The bus from Edinburgh to Manchester, which is a safari, took like 8-9 hours to get back on. To finish on a Sunday night, you'd finish up the personal training on a Sunday night, you'd jump back on the bus, get back into Edinburgh at like 2 o'clock in the morning, you'd be back plumbing at 8 o'clock. And it was just, I then got to the stage of I woke up one morning, I'm like, right, let's just sack the plumbing. And I just remember I wrote a resignation letter, and then I drove away, and then I got a phone call. It's like, right, you've not put your name or the date or this or that on the resignation letter. And,
what was the letter? Just, I'm off.
It was basically, so guys like, right, you'll have to come back in and resign again or what. So I went back, and then I gave him the letter. He's like, what I'll do is I'll just put this in the top drawer here, just in case I says, I'm not changing my mind. He's like, I see you as kind of management material. I says, I'll not be changing my mind. I says, you can take that out the top drawer. Because I was in an environment there, it was like a goldfish bowl. Kind of a council mentality, so to speak. And I remember the words I says to him, I says, it's like a goldfish bowl this. I am on the outside looking in. I says, soon enough I could be on the inside looking out.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. So obviously walked away, started my personal training, or kept that going but done it full time.
Yeah.
So just worked out what I call the training lab, aka my mum and dad's garage.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, you'd have a client walking around the side of the shop to come in. I'd be reversing the car out, rolling out the AstroTurf, training them, then they'd be away, then you'd just put the car back into the garage. And from there, that's what sort of developed the personal development, and that's what developed the mindset side of things for me.
You got to do what you got to do, right, when you're starting out.
Oh, exactly.
I think the analogy that often gets thrown about is like, see when you're in a job and let's say you've been doing it, how long were you a plumber for?
It must have been, it would have been about eight years, I think.
So you're 8 years into a career. It's
Yeah.
a good career being in the trades as well. It's not, you can make a good amount of money being a tradesman. Like you said, like your boss said, he was like, yo, I see you as management. And I think a lot of people get to a certain level in a career and then they get the doubt creeps in. But because of how far they're up this mountain, let's say, they don't want to have to climb back down to start at zero. Yeah. And I think a lot of people just stay because the inertia of going forward and that momentum of going forward in that career is easier than having to start again in something that you know nothing about or know very little about. So how did you overcome that? Is that just your personality type? And if there are other people in that situation, what would you say to them is the practical thing to do there.
The way I worked it was jump off the cliff, then learn how to fly.
Yeah.
Now that's not the advice I'd give to listeners, but that's what I done. I just jumped off the cliff and then learned how to fly. And again, that's not right for everybody. I never had a family or that at that time. So you've obviously got to kind of weigh up those things. But I think there's a saying, and I'm going to kind of butcher it here, and it's something to do with once the pain of change. It must be the pain of change outweighs the pain of staying the same. That's when somebody then makes change. And I think that the unknown, the uncertainty, that's what people dislike. So if you say you're in a job for 10 years, if you were to walk away from that job, there's an uncertainty. Can I survive on my own? What will the new job be like? What will the boss be like? So there's loads of questions that keep an uncertainty.
Yeah.
But something in your head's telling you, well, listen, for the last 10 years, you've done okay here. So why change? It's like take someone that's overweight. People on the outside might look and go, that person could do with losing weight. But the reason they've not lost weight is because there's someone in their head going, right, I could change my diet, I could change my training, I could change loads of things. Where will that lead me? What results will I get? No sure. So we're uncertain. But the other side of the head's going, you've been overweight the last 15 years. You've survived to this point in the last 15 years, so why change? Does that make sense? So the actual uncertainty is the reason that people don't want to change, because it's the kind of fear of the unknown. But you've survived in your life up to this point doing what you're doing. I've survived doing what I'm doing. You survived what you're doing. So you know if you continue to do what you're doing, there's a great chance of surviving. There's a great chance of staying alive. And that's when you look at what the brain's role is. The brain's role is to keep you alive.
Yeah.
Creating change might kill you. Now, that doesn't mean physically kill you, but mentally kill you with emotions, whereas the keeping you alive, what you've done the last 10 years, 15 years, that's kept you alive. So why do we want to put that into jeopardy?
I think it was one of the things I was thinking there while you were speaking was the whole side of Nana came from the side of you making that decision, like internally, like how do you make that decision? But I was thinking about it from the perspective of how do you. It takes quite a bash to your ego. Okay, so say like you get yourself to the point where you're like, all right, I don't fucking hate what I'm doing, but I want to change what I'm doing. Once you've overcome that bit and you've decided that's what I'm going to do, you then need to face everyone in your whole life, your friends, your family, anyone that you've ever met briefly in your career, and you need to be able to say to them, see this thing that I've been telling you I'm content in doing for the past 8, 5, 10 years, whatever. I'm not unhappy with it, but I'm going to take this massive risk and change everything to fulfill a goal that only I understand. And most people, you like to think, would probably support you and go, okay, give that a shot, but they're also probably in their head going to go, why the fuck's he doing that? Like, he's making good money, he's in a good career, he's stable, he's management material, you know, and people don't understand you making because it's one thing that I always hear from people who have done what we have all done, which is like gone and done something on your own, is that they get 5-10 years into it and they go, actually, I don't have the passion for this that I had when I started, and now I want to change it. So it's overcoming one, that you've finally made the decision that you no longer are happy doing the thing that you have made for yourself, and then you need to tell everybody else, I'm now going to change that. So it must be quite hard to convince people that the trade that you'd practiced in and that you were now getting, you had a good job in, where it's not that you hated it or you were unhappy, it was just you no longer had that drive for it and you wanted to change.
I think the big thing of that, obviously, you'd say to try to convince other people. And I never try to convince anybody. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going to go. I know where I'm going to end up. And the decision I made at that time never really directly affected anybody. As I say, I've not got kids, so maybe it'd be different if you had kids. But so it wasn't directly going to affect anybody like that. But it doesn't matter what. Like I say, I remember staying at my mum and dad's. I'd maybe change when I got into the training side of things and that. You change what you eat. Why are you doing that? What's the point in doing that? Why no? And then it got to So you're now got to the gym 5 times a week as opposed to 2. Why you do? And it got to the point where people were asking that many questions and I wasn't answering them. That wasn't being rude or that. It was just, why the hell am I going to spend time trying to convince somebody that doesn't want to be convinced?
Yeah.
I could spend my time better. So it's like, right, you could spend time or half an hour trying to convince somebody of why you go to the gym as often as you could. That 30 minutes that you're spending could be spent in the gym. You could be halfway through your session. So it gets to me, like, say, people worry about letting other people down. I don't worry about letting other people down. I just put them down. And that, I didn't mean put them down in a bad way. I just kind of take their thoughts and their feelings and just put on the table there.
Yeah.
And that's, see, I'm not wanting to convince anybody. It's like whether it's self-development work, whether it's mindset work. I'm not here to convince anybody that that's for them. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm going to attract who I'm going to attract into my life. And if that's for you, brilliant, you latch on. See if it's no for you.
Yeah, I feel like those two things, the fear of change and the fear of other people's opinion, are somewhat similar in that I think as the person that's doing the change, I think you overestimate how difficult it's going to be. So you overthink how difficult the change itself is to do, and then you overthink what other people are going to think. And from my personal experience, I found that just people don't care, primarily because they're probably too involved in what they're doing to even take note. You know, if you change career, let's say maybe you're a lawyer for 20 years or an accountant for 20 years, and then you change, people might be shocked because they might see it as something stable and you're doing something unstable, but they're not seeing it from your perspective of, I just don't want to do this thing anymore. So there's no option for me. I'm going to do something. As you said, the pain of change outweighs the pain of staying or whatever. It's just, I think people, again, Matt and I think Matt will have a similar experience with this business. When we first started, it was uncertain because everything new is uncertain. And over the years, as it grows and you develop and you bring people in, and it has the look of a business that's genuine because it is genuine. It's not any more genuine than it was at the start. It's just other people can see the things that indicate to them that it's doing well or that it's successful. Yeah. Then those questions stop. But in the initial period, I think everyone that's doing something new is going to face those questions from people.
And I think with things like that, quite often we worry about what other people think of us and whatnot, and 99% of people don't give a fuck. They don't care. The amount of people that genuinely care, like truly care about you could probably count them on one hand if we're being honest. Yeah. Aunties, uncles, and what, they probably didn't care as much about you as you'd like to think. And again, if we go back to what the brain's role is to keep you alive. So other people thinking that you've made the wrong decision, that's then a case of jeopardising your survival. Does that make sense? And I think one of the massive things, what I'd done from the start is I just told very few people what I was doing. Because again, why am I going to spend time convincing others? I just told very few people, and the less I told people, the less they could judge me. And then you've now got a stage where I talk very, very little about, like, say, what goes on internally and, like, say, in my head. That's something that I need to get better at, whether it's talking to my girlfriend about things and that. I can lock it up, I can deal with it, I don't need anybody, because that's the kind of way that's led me here. Yeah. But I see the less people I told, the less judgment I experienced. And when it comes to things like judgment, if somebody makes a comment about your business or about you as an individual, if that kind of triggers you, if that lingers with you, if that stays with you, basically what's been said there is whatever they've said, their doubt in you is greater than your belief in yourself. Now, am I going to try sit here or am I going to try convince someone in order for them to drop their doubt? No. They can keep their doubt, but what I'm going to do, the bit that I can control, is building the belief. And when your belief in yourself is greater than their doubt in you, that's where you get to the point that people like to call not giving a fuck. The truth is, we all give a fuck. Yeah. If I was speaking to clients about this the other day, if nobody gave a fuck what other people thought, why do we have social media? Everybody cares what each other thinks. But when you're looking at someone like they don't give a fuck, basically they've got to a point where their belief in themselves is outweighing the doubt for others in them. Yeah. And if you want to sit there and try convince somebody to reduce their doubt or bash on. That could be right for some, but it certainly wasn't right for me. I just went doubled up on the belief in myself.
100%. And I think sometimes there's an internal doubt as well. There's an insecurity that you have about something in particular. So I'll pick an example. When I used to play junior football and youth football,
Yep.
and when I would step up a level, I'd always have doubt about fitness because it was something that I knew was a weakness. Like I was fit, but like fit compared to the average person, but not match fit. And I think when I had that doubt going into a new team, that worried me because I hadn't dealt with it. Whereas I think, having gotten older, if you know that there's an issue that you have or whatever your business has, and it's something that causes you concern, if someone brings it up as a criticism, then it hurts or stings more because you're aware of that weakness or flaw. So dealing with that or strengthening that weakness is the way to get around that. But for a footballer's point of view, how do you convey that message to them? Or is that something that you say to a player that has doubt? Or
Yeah, so if you've got doubt around something, it's probably coming from an internal question. Can I last 90 minutes fitness-wise? Or what if I make a mistake? What if I give the ball away? What if I get beat? And whether that's a footballer, whether that's us with business or any listeners, you tend to find the doubt comes via a question. To ease that doubt, to reduce that doubt, what you have to have is the answer. So in that situation, so not to bore people, but to create safety, or as I call it, the ice head, what you need to have, two things, prediction and response. A prediction of what might happen and a response to that prediction. If you have a prediction, so what if I give the ball away? If a footballer doesn't have a response to that, they then go into threat. I call that the firehead. So people need the prediction and the response. What if I give the ball away? There's a prediction. But what's the response? We need to have an internal and an external answer to that. So if, I don't know, maybe people listening to this, maybe they have their own business. What if that person doesn't pay me? Well, what if? So what footballers try to do, they try to brush it under the carpet, they try to forget about it. Doesn't work. Because remember, what's the brain's role? The brain's role is to keep you alive. This person not paying you mentally is compromising your safety. So you're trying to forget about it, you're trying to brush it under the carpet, but straight away this thing's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it'll continue to get bigger until you answer it. So it's like, right, I'm a plumber, what if my mum says this, or what if my dad says this? Unless I address that, unless I have an answer to that, I've got the prediction with the response, I'm going to go into what I call the firehead. Firehead's where you doubt yourself. Firehead's where everything speeds up or everything slows down. Firehead's where you kind of become crippled and you can't take action. So what you need to have a prediction of what could happen and how you would respond to that. So if you're a footballer and you blow your gasket 60 minutes in with regards to fitness, what is the response to that? Physically, what do you want to do? Mentally, what do you want to tell yourself? So you've then seen this moment, like say, this is a big moment, something could happen. If you know that you can deal with that, if that moment happens, if that client doesn't pay me, if I do blow a gasket 60 minutes in, I have got a system, I've got a process in place. It's then not a threat. Why? Because you're going to deal with it. You know how you deal with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's like you set up your podcast, you've got everything in the studio ready. If you've got the what if John doesn't turn up today? Yeah. If that's a big worry for you, and if you
absolutely shit my pants.
So if you've got that worry, unless you have the answer to, right, I'll phone Peter down the street because he's in next week, I'll just bring him forward.
Yeah.
Or instead I can bring this client consultation forward, or I can go and build this, or I can do that. It then makes you feel a lot better because you know when the shit hits the fan,
you know what
you can deal with it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then it's no shit hitting the fan because you know that it's now no a threat. Kind of, what was the question?
Eloquently put.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it makes sense to just prepare yourself, but being prepared.
I think it's useful to look at the worst case scenario, so to know if you can handle that. If you can't handle that, then you probably shouldn't take that action. Yeah. If you haven't got, as you said, you haven't got a contingency plan in place. Like prior to this, I had it in another life. I had an app startup. And I knew what the outcomes would be if that failed, what I would do in response to that if it didn't work. And it's what led me here. But I think you wouldn't take those chances or those risks if you hadn't thought about what could happen, what could go wrong.
Yeah.
I think it's so super important. I don't think a lot of people like to do that. One, it maybe highlights to them that what they're wanting to do, they can't actually deal with the reality of that. And two, again, going back to the uncertainty thing, like, I think we overcompensate how difficult something's going to be in the actual day-to-day of it. We think, if I want to become I don't know, what would I want to become? I want to become a physicist, let's say, something that I know nothing about.
What's that?
Right?
An astronaut. Let's say an astronaut.
An astronaut. I want to become an astronaut. Like, I'm going to have to train, probably going to have to study, going to have to do exams. What if I don't pass these exams? You know, you start, what's the word, catastrophizing about how difficult it's going to be, rather than just, what's the next thing that's in front of me, and how do I handle that? And what's the next thing in front of me? What's step 2? What's step 3? You know, like, let's think about all the things that could go wrong. I might die on the way up to the moon or whatever.
Yeah, because, again, go back to the role of your brain. It's to keep you alive. So, catastrophize, is that the word? That's why it does that, because that could compromise your safety. So if failing that test could compromise your safety, your brain wants to make this threat as big as possible, so you know that there is a threat there. And until you answer that, what if I fail the test? It's just got to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And people in sport, people in life, don't think about the worst case scenario because it might happen. What? Or don't think about the worst case scenario. You might jinx it, and again, it might happen. That's mental thinking. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. You need to look at what could go wrong and how you would deal with it. Because if you take a footballer, if they make a mistake or they give a ball away, they don't know what they do in the situation. So they now go on to a football park, can't I give the ball away? What if I give the ball away? Don't want to give the ball away. Yep. So instead of playing the 20-yard pass, they now play the 5-yard pass. Instead of shooting, they now pass. Instead of crossing it, they now cut it back. So they're now, the way that they are playing is now being affected. It's now kind of, as I call it, sticking the shackles on. Whereas if they know, if I give the ball away, I'm going to do A, B and C. If I make an arse of my first cross, I've got to process A, B and C. They can then go and smash the cross. They can then go and try the 20-yard pass. They can then do whatever they want. They can release the shackles and try play the game that they want. Whereas if there's that fear of failure, if there's that fear of this thing going wrong and not being able to cope with it, everything that you then do, you stick the shackles on. And that goes for business as well. What if that client, I don't know, say your prices are £700. What if that client says no? What if I say £700 and the client says no? If you don't have a kind of response for that, if you don't know what you do in that situation, you go there and they're like, right, how much does that got to cost? So £450. And you're like, fuck, why did I just say that? But unless you're prepared for them to say no, or that worst case scenario, you've then offered them something a lot less than you were going to, because you're shit feared of the thing happening that you don't know how you deal with. And that, see, whether it's football, whether it's life, whether it's business, for me, the inner game, it drives everything. Football and life is played between the ears. Business and life is played between the ears.
It seems to me like everything that you're saying, nobody tells you about.
To a certain degree. There's, like say, everything I've done. So I never went through university or whatnot. Everything I've done, I've paid for my own courses. I've travelled to Thailand for courses, London, drive to places like Shrewsbury and whatnot. So I've just looked at, right, what do I need to plug that gap, or what do I need in order to serve myself at that point? Yeah. And then I just take, whether it's the programs, whether it's the YouTube videos, the podcasts or that, I just kind of amalgamate things and go, right, where is that relevant to me? So before we started the podcast, we were talking about Formula 1. I've watched Formula 1 programs in the past, not that interested in Formula 1, but I've looked at the processes, the systems Formula 1 has in place. I've looked at that. Look at your Lewis Hamiltons we were talking about, your Ayrton Sennas. They were driving and it was like they were willing to die whilst driving. Yeah. There was no, what if I have a bump here? What if I have a crash? The question was, or the answer, they were willing to die. They could deal with having a bump. They could deal with having a crash. And I'm looking at it and going, right, maybe I'll tell that story to my client next week. So everything that happens in life, for me, there's always a story that's relevant to yourself.
Yeah.
And I just look at that and go, right, where is that relevant to me? Is it? No, discard it. Is it? Yes, write it down, take a note, boom, let's run with it.
I think, sorry, more what I mean is we're in this kind of interesting place at the moment with mindset, with, I guess mental health is probably the most commonly used descriptor of it. But we are at this kind of place at the moment socially where we're quite accepting of the idea that people struggle inside their heads. You know, that it's not just everybody is hunky-dory and we're just getting on with it. But we've kind of got to that place now as a collective where it's okay to be unsure of yourself, where it's okay to be depressed, or it's okay to feel overwhelmed and suffer from anxiety, or, you know, any of the, you know, I mean, in many ways, they kind of feel sometimes like popular buzzwords that people say because I don't really think that we've got to the bottom of understanding what it is that people are dealing with, so we're just kind of like bannering them. It's like, oh, you're feeling a wee bit unsure about yourself in work today? It's probably anxiety, so maybe just take 5 minutes and go meditate. You know, it's like we're diagnosing how people are feeling about things and then applying really shitty solutions to those problems. And what you do, I mean, it's not very dissimilar to kind of psychiatry in a sense, like where you're listening to somebody's problems and then you're trying to help them through a process of how to prepare themselves to deal with those issues, which is something we don't do as far as I'm aware in general.
Can I just sharpen that up just a wee bit?
Yeah.
So I think we're in a place where we identify problems and that we give generic solutions like meditate, which is really useful for understanding why you have these issues, but then there's no action plan on top. There's nothing like what you're saying, like mindset.
No.
There's no, like, we're quite good at identifying issues now, but then it's quite vague as to, okay, so what do I do about this? Because if you meditate, like I've been meditating for the last, I think, 6 months or something, quite consistently, and it's useful, very useful for quieting, to kind of isolate what's wrong if you're anxious, but it's not a solution to that problem. You know, it's not saying what if this happens and what if that happens, and how am I going to handle that? So I just wonder how we get to a place where people think more about their mental health in terms of resilience and actually applying these techniques that you're talking about with players.
Good question. I think nowadays, obviously, mental health, things like that, it's kind of gone into the front line. There's more awareness around it, which I think the awareness I think is great. But what you'd also touched upon as well, I think we're just giving people labels.
Yeah.
Like, and you used the word depression. I've never been depressed to my knowledge. I've been in dark places. I've been in tough places. I don't think I've ever been depressed. And I think with things like that, it's giving people tools to help them understand why that is the situation. Why are they feeling like that? What do they need to do to come away from that? What do they need to do in order to change that?
Yep.
But I think nowadays we're just going through a phase just now of giving people labels, not just with regards to mental health, with anything. And I think if we give you a label like you're depressed, say you weren't across the kind of depression threshold, but now that I've gave you that label, with that label comes certain actions. So I need to feel like this, I need to feel like that, I need to feel like this has to happen, that has to happen. Whereas at the end of the day, it's just labels. More important than the label is the feeling. More important than the feeling, it's the person. So I think we need to be very wary of giving people labels like this, just generic labels. And I think
it's a dangerous thing.
Oh, massively. And I think that when we come back to it, it's like you could speak to somebody and it's like, oh, I'm skint this week. And then you look, they've got a Sky Dish, they've got a massive telly, they've got an iPhone, or somebody's football team got beat yesterday 1-0, oh, I'm depressed. You're not depressed, but we use these words flippantly. Yeah. We use words like skint. You're no skint. Skint's when you've got fuck all.
Yeah.
You're living in a cardboard box or what. That's really skint. You might be poor. You might not be as well off this month as you were last month, but you're no skint. And that having a tough time doesn't mean to say you're depressed. Without doubt, there is people out there with depression, and it 100%, must be so tough. But I think nowadays we are applying labels to people. There's people out there believing they're depressed, and they're not. There's a difference between being depressed and having a tough time.
I think it's really disarming as well to give yourself a label or to identify with that label. So let's say you are depressed, like clinically you are depressed. I think a lot of people in that situation that's the wrong word, but they identify with that as being a barrier they can't overcome. So they can't make a positive change because they're depressed, rather than thinking, okay, so these things aren't right. So if I make incremental positive changes, that might bring me out of this place. And I think that's as well, just as dangerous.
Massively, and I think that, like say, depression, obviously, it's the way you're feeling, and that's massive in the impact in that. Who knows how the way somebody else is feeling? Of course, they can describe symptoms and whatnot, but there's only one person that truly knows how you're feeling, and that's yourself. And I just think that with this, you'd use the word flippantly, giving people labels. There's people out there genuinely got genuine cases, whether it's a depression and whatnot. And the more we label people who aren't depressed with depression, I think it kind of dilutes. Does that make sense? It kind of dilutes the genuine cases.
Does.
And I look through, you can't read social media and know whether somebody is depressed or not, but it seems to be nowadays that we do want to label ourselves with these things, and I think the genuine cases are probably being lost in the grand scheme of things. Maybe, I don't know if diluted is the right word.
It's unfortunate that this conversation, it's not an easy conversation to have, because you've got there's so many variances. Like depression's a reality for so many people that you can't diminish what it actually is. Like it's a real thing. It does exist. We can't say that it's not. None of us are saying that it doesn't exist. But I think that what a lot of people like to do is they like to give themselves the label of that, because it allows them to have an answer for why they're not able to do something. Yeah. And I'm not saying depression's maybe a little bit of a hard one to categorize, because it's quite hard to define, because it's such a wide thing. But it's like, I don't want to do this thing, because I know for myself, like I get anxious sometimes. I'm quite an anxious individual, so I can get quite uptight and uncomfortable in situations. The appropriate response that I could give to somebody if I didn't want to do something is, oh no, I've got anxiety. I can't do this because of my anxiety. But that doesn't really allow me to face that issue. It doesn't allow me to overcome that. It just gives me an excuse why it is that I can't move forward, why I can't approach something, or why nobody else can judge me for the fact that I'm not wanting to do this situation.
I think,
spot on.
And in your case, could you say, anxiety is the outcome?
Yeah.
Whereas there's obviously the cause.
Exactly.
So as opposed to try to address the anxiety, address the cause. If you address the cause... I'm speaking
fantastic.
about that very,
right.
very vague, and I'm not trying to do that, but if anxiety is the sort of outcome, if that's the bit that we see, that's not the problem. Because if we try to address anxiety, we're just sticking a plaster over a bullet wound. We need to go to the bullet, take the bullet out, and then do the repair work there. So come deeper than the anxiety, repair that.
Yep.
So it could be a self-worth thing, it could be a judgment thing, it could be... And as we start to overcome these things at the source level, the anxiety then somehow...
But that's exactly... I'm glad we kind of got there. Because that's kind of where I was trying to get to with the initial question, is we are very good as a society now, culturally, of accepting the diagnosis. But we've not really got to the stage yet where we're looking to provide a solution to the initial symptoms. And what you're doing with these footballers is one approach to it would be, you are concerned about what's going to happen on the field, so you should just accept that concern and just live with it. Which is what we kind of do with people at the moment, which is you have X diagnosis, so therefore we are all going to accept X diagnosis as the reason why you can't move forward. Whereas what you're looking at is like, here's all the problems, here's all the things that are holding you back, that are they're leading you to this point. So let's try and solve those so that you can move forward. And I don't think that that's something that anybody even tries to address in schools, at university, at college, in work. It's like, oh, you've got this, so why don't you go do some mindfulness stuff or some meditation? But you're not addressing the issue.
But yeah, and it goes back to what we were saying earlier. So say it's anxiety from a night out. I don't know, say, right, I'm anxious for going on a night out because I'm scared in case someone brings up a situation that I was in a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So what if they say that to me?
Yeah.
Goes back to what we were saying earlier. There's a prediction. What's the response? So if I then build a response, right, if someone says that, I've then got a response that I believe I've got a toolkit in order to deal with it.
Yeah.
The anxiety then starts to disappear because that situation that we were anxious about, that could just that could erupt into something that I can't see. If somebody says that, I'll know how. Whereas if we build a response to it, we then know, we're cool, we can deal with this. So the anxiety starts to...
It's such a fascinating thing that you do because it can be applied to almost any walk of life. Like, you've chosen football as your area, like your specialism, and that's, I mean, admirable in the way that you approach it and the way that you help these young professionals get to their end goals. But you could literally take what you say and apply it to any profession or anybody. Like, what you're anxious about losing your job.
Yeah.
What happens if you do?
So, my principle, or if you want to use a kind of buzzword philosophy, is football in life is played between the ears.
Yeah.
And you'll never solve an inner game struggle with an outer game solution. So basically what I mean by that is football in life is played between the ears. It's a case of anything a footballer feels comes from between the ears. Anything a footballer does comes from between the ears. So if we make their mindset stronger, quicker, faster, whatever we want it to be, the way that we feel what we do becomes quicker, stronger, faster.
Yeah.
You'll never solve an inner game struggle with an outer game solution. So say we're struggling with doubt, we're struggling with confidence. What a footballer is then likely to do, so that's an inner game struggle. Let's go and work harder on the training field. Let's go and run more. Let's eat better. So we're now working harder on the outer game, although it's an inner game solution. Mm-hmm. So we come back to the next game. What if I give the ball away? What if I make an arse of the pass? What if we get beat? That's inner game, and we've tried to address the outer game. So now we are feeling exactly the same, probably feeling even worse because we're working harder and harder and harder now during the week, yet still feeling exactly the same. So if we're working harder, feeling the same, we now start to feel worse. And then what do we do next? The game week, same cycle. So we're now working even harder on the outer game, but it's the inner game that's the struggle. So we need to address the inner game. That's the same with business. Like, say anything that you do in business in life is played between the ears. You'll never solve an inner game struggle with an outer game solution. So if say you are worried about quoting your figures, or you're worried about a sales pitch to someone, that's inner game. So somebody comes along and goes, all right, you should try this pitch, or you should try this way of doing it. That's not the issue. The sales pitch isn't the issue. It's the hear and know that's the issue, which is inner game. So as opposed to trying to get a new sales pitch, as opposed to trying to work out our game, what you need to do is go back, look at yourself, address your values. Why is that? Is it the element of judgment? Do I think if they said no to my prices, that reflects me and not my business, not the product? So it needs to be addressed. An inner game struggle, if somebody's out there struggling with confidence, struggling with belief, struggling with doubt, that needs to be addressed inner game. That's a mindset struggle, as opposed to trying to affect it or change it on the outside. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, of course, absolutely.
And people, they can spend a lot of time, they can spend a lot of money, they can spend a lot of energy, they can spend a lot of emotion on trying to solve it outer game, but all the while it's inner game. See that?
Did you get quite a good... I'm curious, when you said that you used to go into schools, did you get quite a positive reception from young folk? Yeah. Kids love it.
Kids absolutely love it. What I would say though is, I've had kids say I've spoke to their football team on a Tuesday, then I'd went into the school on a Wednesday. Completely different dynamic from the football to the school. I'm still speaking about the same thing, but the environment's different. So getting these kids in an environment that they love, doing something they love, football, here's how improving your mindset will improve your football. Improving their mindset is just improving them as a person. Whereas if you go into a maths class and go, right, here's how we're going to improve your sums, mate, turn it off. But I'm a firm believer that the earlier you can get someone at this, it's just the reason nobody works on their inner game is because it's no normality. But if we can get these kids at a younger age, they don't know what their normal is. So if we can get them at a younger age, you can then kind of start to chisel that normal, being vulnerable, doubting yourself, struggling with confidence. We can let kids know that that's normal, but here's what you need to do in order to change it. Because now, kids come out of primary school, they come out of high school, and they're like, oh, I'm struggling with this exam, or I'm struggling with that. And then they flip through social media, and everybody's lives are fucking perfect on social media.
Yeah.
And then it makes their doubt, and it makes their kind of doubt higher, confidence lower, whatever it might be.
We don't value achievement and inner satisfaction. We like to think we do. Like when you look at Instagram, you look at all these people sitting on the beach meditating and like saying how happy they are and that life is amazing and they're feeling great. We're not really looking at that picture and going, they're valuing themselves as an individual. We're looking at like the picture of them sitting on the beach, and it's like, oh, so they're on the beach, so they must be like really financially well off. But we value things, and working on your internal doesn't buy you shit that you can show off to people. Like I think one of the biggest issues that I've personally struggled with is that I don't spend money on things. I'm not a big believer in owning stuff. I don't care so much about buying nice cars. I have nice things. I buy things that I like, but I don't necessarily do it because I want people to see that. But because of that, you get a lot of the time people thinking that you're not doing well. And then because people don't think you're doing well, it's sometimes it makes you ask yourself, like, why is it that people don't think that I'm doing okay? Why is it that people think I'm doing poorly? Is it because I haven't bought a Range Rover yet? And I don't wear particular brands of clothing? Like, what is it that I'm happy? I love the work that I do. I enjoy. I struggle from time to time. Everything in life is good. I'm very, very blessed and lucky in that sense. But that doesn't change the fact that people don't perceive it to be that way. So therefore, you have to be confident in yourself that you're happy. So that's all that matters, not that everybody else is happy with how they think you are.
Yeah, and I think the big thing there is just to remember there's not that many people you need to satisfy in order to get what you want or live the life that you want. Yeah. And like say Joe blogs on the street, or whoever follows your social media, or whoever listens to the podcast, they don't need to think that you're doing well in order for you to feel well. But I think sometimes we do think that we need other people's validation in order to go, oh, he's doing well. And I say, I obviously work in an industry where you could argue the truth is there's a lot of money going about, but I'll still buy maybe 3 garments of clothes a year. I'll still drive that black Fiesta at this stage. I could come here and I could try say that I drive a Range Rover, I could do this, I could do that. I drive up and down the country every week, bursting my balls. That Fiesta's done more miles than you could ever think in the last year, and I'm nowhere near where I want to be. Would I like to drive a nicer car? Would I like to have a lifestyle that's maybe that wee bit slower? I think I would, yeah. But at this stage, that's not where I am. I understand where I am. I'm the runt of the litter, and I need to do what I need to do in order to get what I want. But I'm not here to try sort of give off this life that I don't have.
Yeah, you're not pretending.
No, I wake up, I've got a dog, got a girlfriend, wake up, walk a dog in the morning, do sessions, sometimes walk a dog at night. If I could walk my dog 24/7 and put in some coaching, that's my life. I don't need other people's gratification or validation. I don't need lovely jeans, shirt. And listen, see if all that kind of, the material stuff, see if that is for you, like say watches and that, if that's for you, bash on. Yeah. Brilliant. I think that's great. But that, for me, that's not me. So why do it's hard enough being yourself at times, so why the fuck are you got to try to be somebody different?
But that's the thing, is that there is a very difficult motivator, because see, once you've got that, if that was the motivation, if the motivation was to have a Range Rover and nice jeans, then see, when you get a Range Rover and nice jeans, what's next? Huh? Where do you go? Why do you keep doing what you're doing? Success
can lead to complacency.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, it'd be all right to say, right, if £1 million dropped in your bank account tomorrow, another one on top of the one you've already got, but would you still be doing this? And I'd love to sit here and say yes. I'm sure you will sit there and say yes. But until that £1 million dropped in, you'd never ever know.
No.
And I think, like, see me asking that question, it's a pointless question. It's an irrelevant question. And I think that a lot of the other things are pointless, and a lot of the other things that people ask are irrelevant as well.
Yeah.
If you were in the... Well, you're not. Do you know what I mean? If £1 million, or if you had 100 clients, would you still... I've no.
Yeah, so...
So what? What's the point in me asking myself?
I think as well, back to what other people think about you, I guess it depends what you value, right? So if you value someone who is doing what they want to do more than what they have, and you see someone who, let's say they run a bakery, and they don't make millions of pounds, but they are doing what they want to do, then you probably respect that in them more than you respect the things that they have. As opposed, so I'm a lot like Matthew. I don't really care what shiny car you have or what that you wear all Gucci or whatever it is. It just doesn't.
Next.
It just doesn't impress me. I'm just not interested in that. And I think for people that feel like other people are judging them because of the things they don't have, so what? Like, what do you value? What's important to you? And that's the standard. You need to have your own core principles. Like something that I don't get jealous often, but if I'm going to be jealous, it's because I see someone putting in the work. So if it's fitness, like if I see someone putting in the work in the gym, I'm like, bastard, I should be doing that. I should be doing that. That's the thing that gets me. So I guess it really doesn't matter what other people think in that instance. But again, if it's something that you value, then I think that's where you feel the judgment more.
Yeah. Because I know, like, for me, if I could take a house, for example, all I want is just to wake up in the morning and my front window's got a seaside view. Yeah. So that would do me. Now, what shirt or what pair of pants or what pair of shoes I've got on at that point is irrelevant. As long as I can see the sea or water from my front window, I'll be happy. I'm still... The kind of the house I've got just now, it's sort of side facing on a street. Although you're 2 minutes from the beach, but I still know I want to draw open the front curtains and there's the sea. That'd make me happy. But again, it's what makes others happy, or you've got to do what makes you happy. Sorry.
I'm afraid that's us reached the hour. I can't believe that we're actually there. That's us 1 hour in.
Flow for it again.
You have a number of things going on at the moment. One of them primarily being that you have a podcast as well. So do you want to plug all your shit?
Good. Let's send them to the website.
Yeah.
The website is built. So if anybody wants, especially, obviously everything's directed at football as it stands, footballmindset.co.uk. You can check out some of my work, and you can also check out some of the boys' work.
Thank you.
Social media, big one would be Instagram, and that would be just type in Football Mindset. You'll find hundreds, if not thousands, of posts from there. And my own podcast is called, I think it's called Football Mindset. Try that. Try Football Mindset.
Football Mindset podcast.
And that'll be, I think there's quite a lot of episodes sitting there just now, but I'll get it back up and running for the football in the next couple of weeks for the new season.
Fantastic.
Well, spot on.
Thank you so much for coming in. As always, it was lovely having you.
Thank you.